So, very welcome to the Circle of Resilience, our global version. And we've had some beautiful conversations in Dutch, but not everyone can understand Dutch. So, we decided to do an English version. And I'm so happy to be talking to Vicki in a minute. And I look forward to that very much.
Thank you for having me here, Marika.
Yeah. But before we do that, we just take a moment to tune into ourselves to kind of bring the energy to our own hearts and our own bodies. The way I love doing that is to by rubbing my hands a little bit, just to kind of. It's in the middle of the afternoon when I'm taping this, and my hands have already done a lot. And I just like to kind of thank them and caress them, and then feel that they can also like bring energy. They bring warmth. Right, move them faster. Mm, they bring movement and also feel more alive when I do this. But just for a few seconds. And you can close your eyes or you can keep them open, whatever suits you. And then you bring your hands to your body. Just take a moment where they want to go. Maybe you have a sore spot on your body that your hands want to support for a moment. And this just gentle touching of your body, kind of reminding you that you are more than just your head. That sometimes happens when you have to work a lot behind the computer. You think you forget the rest of your body. So maybe you want to touch your feet, just to remind you that there's so much more of you than you sometimes use. And then you rest your hands, maybe one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, your womb space. And we take 3 breaths together. And the first one, you breathe in everything that is pulling you forward into all the things that you need to do, all the things you should not forget, the plans, the lists. When you breathe out, you let them go. They don't serve you in this moment. And then the second breath, you kind of think of all the things that pull you back in time. Maybe things that have happened today or this week or maybe much longer ago. And breathing out, you let them go. There's nothing you can do about them in this moment. And the third breath is about breathing in this moment, to realize that we're all connected through our breathing. And that at this moment, when I breathe, so many other people also take a breath. So I welcome this moment. I welcome me in this moment. I welcome you in this moment. And then I want to light a candle. So you can slowly open your eyes again. And it's nice that when you listen or when you meet someone, that you can keep a little bit of this energy, this attention in your own space. Then I light a candle for us, for our meeting,
Mm.
for our brave and courageous hearts to step out
Yes.
into the world, um, to you who is listening, that you make time for this, that you show up for yourself. Um, and for so many people all around the world um, that are taking steps to live authentic lives, that want to be the change they want to see in the world, and for so many people that are living from the hearts. And my hope is that we remember that more and more, and that we come together in circles more and more, so that this overlap, and and it's circling around the world. And yeah, I look forward to that, and I rejoice in how it's going already. So light for all of us.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, and then I get to meet Vicki, and
Yeah.
we just talked about that. I don't do bios. If you want to read more about her, you can read that on the page. But I love to say, how we met and why I was so excited that you said yes. We met in a global circle, and there was this like kind of connection and a kind of recognizing of each other in a longing to do something in the world.
Yeah.
Um, and then you came to visit because you're in the
Yes.
States, and then you came to visit in the Netherlands with your daughter, and you stayed with us, and it was just so natural. I thought,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, this is how we do it. This is how we connect, and how we kind of, make space for each other, make space for our hearts to find each other. Um, yeah, and I know that you've also been through a lot, and you've had to make some big decisions and some big changes. So when we kind of felt like, oh, we want to do a global version, I thought, I'm gonna check if Vicky is available
Yeah. And I
to meet.
appreciate you asking. So
Yeah.
excited to be here to have the conversation.
Yeah. So yeah, would you like to share something about um I think how resilience is part of your life?
Yeah. Wow. When you mentioned the word resilience and you invited me to be part of the conversation, I had to take a moment to just think about, what is resilience to me and what has it meant in my life? And I can only partner resilience with my deepening connection to myself. And I
Mm,
think back through the period of my life when I wasn't at all connected to myself. And I don't think I had any, there wasn't much resilience there, or it took a lot longer. So I think of resilience as being able to spring back, to bounce back from events, situations, changes. And wow, back when I was younger and not so aware of what was happening inside of me, sometimes it took me a long time to
mm,
bounce back. But I think those events led me to where I'm at today, where I kind of got to this point of getting sick and tired of having this series of repeating events in my life that made me always have to be bouncing back, right? So
mm,
it's like, how can we change this trajectory and do things different? And that led me to a moment probably 10 years ago where I really shifted the trajectory of my life and began to connect deeper with my own spirit and let it guide me in different ways. And now I feel like with that connection, the resiliency has just increased so much where there's not this extreme need for recovery from events that happen. I think instead of being bogged down in the emotion of an event, I'm just able so much more to experience those things in the moment and not let them like get stuck inside of me and then have this great need for recovery. But we're meeting in a time where everybody around the globe has been impacted by changes way out of our circumstances. And it's a we I think we can look at it two ways. There's the people who let that cause a lot of fear for them. And certainly there's been a lot of uncertainty for all of us.
Mm,
But then there's also those who look at it as an opportunity to see, like, what are the things that are coming up for me that wouldn't come up under any other circumstance that I can now heal and release.
yeah. 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 I like what you say about that. There's not this great need for recovery. I remember when, like a few years ago, um, I would take it on. Something would happen, I would take it on, and I would like, we in the Netherlands we say we put our shoulders underneath it, so you kind of carry it, and
Yep.
I'm carrying, you know, and I use my willpower to, get it done, fix it, make it right, and at some point you just come to where it doesn't work anymore, and I think in this time you also see people that, well, for me it didn't work anymore, so but you see people doing this, come on, let's, chin up, no, just another few weeks of whatever
Yeah.
going on, and I think that's for me, that's not resilience, that is actually like
It's
ignoring,
resistance.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of ignoring your inner strength that might say, maybe you just need to rest.
Yeah.
Maybe you just need to sit this one out or whatever. But it's a different message that comes from when you connect inside.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. And there's an element of resisting and avoiding what is if we can just continue to focus on the future and the shift in the future, then we kind of bypass the now, but we really only ever let things flow through us in the now.
Mm. Yeah. And in the now, there's this question that comes up. Do I allow myself to be changed by what is happening? Or do I want to be the person I was before? Do I want to get back to how it used to be, like my old self again? And I think, no, I welcome the new self,
I was
you
gonna
know?
say I don't want to go back to my old self.
Yeah, and I love my old self. It's not like, I don't have to pass that aside, but it's, do I allow myself to be changed by life, by
Yeah.
the opportunities and the challenges? Yeah.
I think there's this element of us, we always want control. We want to be able to, we need that control because our mind says, for me to be okay, I have to make every one of my life circumstances kind of line up in this perfect order. And as long as our mind is in control, trying to get those things to line up, we kind of get kind of crazy trying to make those things line up. It's this is what you were saying, that we get tough, we just dig in, we dive in and do it. But if we instead can find that deep inner peace inside of us, it's like this deep calm of the ocean. Then the turbulence and the storms can be around us,
Mm.
and we're just so deeply anchored into that peace that the uncertainty then doesn't sway us and throw us off balance like it does when we're just functioning from that mind of thinking, wow, everything has to be lined up, and I'm never, just about the time I get things how I want it, then something happens and it throws me off balance.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like this if then living, if this
Right.
happening, then I can be happy, or then I can be whatever. Yeah. Mm,
Yeah.
I love the image of the anchor and this deep calm, because we also talked a bit about how giving and receiving is one of the ways to well-being, and I suddenly had this image of being anchored, and the ways they just give and receive, they just kind of like flow through me, this
Yeah.
giving and receiving. It's not something I have to do, or I have to control how what I'm giving is received, and I don't have to control the receiving. It's just, I just like, yeah, I'm in this anchor, and it flows through me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a much more resilient, we'll go back to that word, way to be than being totally blown about by those turbulent storms, having it just, wow, whack us over this way and then whack us over that way. And the ebb and the flow, there are natural ebbs and flows of life. And I think that's one of the things I resisted throughout my lifetime is, why can't it all be great? And I think that those of us who've been on this spiritual and deepening journeys, we can think about things like the law of attraction and manifesting and things like that. And we can sometimes get this idea that if we're not, that if we are perfectly embracing those concepts, then things should be great in our life all the time. And then we we can kind of set ourselves up for failure when it doesn't go that way. And I think that's one of the things that I've seen as I learned those concepts for me about how much my thinking controlled my reality, how my emotions played into that. Uh, I've really just learned that there's a much deeper element to that. Again, it's the mind versus the heart spaces.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, and so this series is about, conversations with women, because I think that, or we felt that, you know our stories are different. They're not linear. They are cyclical. cyclical
Yeah. Cyclical. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the ebb and the flow, and it is like the moon, and it is like, the seasons and the day. It can't be morning all day. you know it has to become afternoon, and then evening, and then night, and then the morning comes up again. And so it's like this much more natural way. um yeah, which needs everything in us. My mind is really happy if it can join. I don't want to do without my mind, but there's more to me, more to life than the straight line and the control and the you know the the fixing of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so resilience for me is also about like surrendering to that spiral kind of movement. Yeah.
I love that when you use the word surrender, because if we go back to that image of the anchor and the boat kind of gently moving in that, if you think about floating, in a pool of water where you are just completely relaxed. And I find that for me, that's one of the most absolutely relaxing things to do is just to float in warm water in the sun. And you're at that moment and letting go of control of everything and just allowing
Yeah.
that moment to be and the gentle movements of the body. But then, if we kind of move that into life circumstances, it's interesting to learn how to live in that surrendered place in life when things are happening to us, the uncertain things are happening. And that is the moment when we can really grasp that, when we do become more resilient, because it does flow through you instead of getting stopped up inside of you.
Mm.
And I want to just bring in a really poignant example for me because my family's just gone through the uh, kind of a series of years of declining health for my father, and he passed away in January. And in the earlier years of my life, I didn't allow myself to express emotions. They just all bottled deeper and deeper and deeper inside of me. And of course, when that happens, it's like you said, that putting your shoulders under it. You're being tough. You're carrying it. You're it's just stuck inside. And over the years, as I've deepened my connection to me, I've learned how to release that, and I've learned how to experience those emotions in the moment, to receive the emotion and to just let it be. And so the last couple of months of my dad's life were the most beautiful experience for me because, and I'm going to bring in another level of this giving and receiving now, because I think when we surrender back into the flow of the universe gives us these beautiful gifts that on the surface we could really resist.
Mm.
So I'm going to back up just a minute, because coming in to the end of November in my business, I had a number of group programs, clients, all these things that were happening. And they kind of all naturally wound down at the end of November. And I had planned on taking some time for family vacation in December. And then I had all of these plans that were going to launch again in January. But I had these first 10 days of December where I was going to line up all these things that were going to launch the 1st of January. And let me tell you, Marika, nothing lined up. Everybody who had expressed interest in a program said, it's just not really resonating with me right now. And some of my other clients said, I just need to put things on hold for a moment. And I was just observing that and curious. And let me tell you, like 2 or 3 years ago, that me would have been like panicking, going,
Yeah.
what do I do? Because I was trying to still control every circumstance in my life. And instead, I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm curious about this. I'm just surrendering and let it be what it's going to be. I was able to go on the vacation with my kids and just enjoy that. And when I came home from that and went to visit my parents, it's obvious that my dad's health had took another level of decline. The week after, he went into the hospital, and then oh, 3.5 weeks after that, he passed away. Well, because the universe had given me this beautiful gift of slowing my business down,
Yeah.
I was able to be completely present there for my mom, for my siblings, rest of my family. And I was able to cry when I needed to cry. I was
Mm.
able to, to have the words I needed to have with my dad. And it was the most beautiful gift that the universe could have given me. But if I had not learned those lessons the last few years about releasing control and surrendering, I would have spent those first few weeks of January fighting to find clients, fighting to get some people signed up to my, to different things. And I would have missed that beautiful time with my dad.
Mm.
And we don't, it doesn't make sense to us. Though it didn't make sense to me that I had all these things happening and didn't make sense in December when it slowed down. But I said the eyes of our soul can see so much farther ahead. And being in a space to receive that instead of resist it, it's a
Mm.
beautiful, beautiful space.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it only becomes clear a little after, it's not there right away, but if something in you is curious enough, you know, just enough to say, okay, can I receive this as a gift? Is it going to, is it pointing me in some direction? Is it opening me up in some way? And then, yeah, you receive from life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
A couple years ago, I was working with a client, and in the trauma healing work that I do with people one on one, we do a lot of images that kind of bring up things from the subconscious to be healed. And she was working on this very idea of giving and receiving. And as we went into the visualization, the healing visualization that we were doing, she had this image of a water wheel. And it just made such a huge thing for me, because I always feel like when I'm in a coaching session with a client like that, it's just as much for that image is just as much for me as it is for them. But the image was of the flowing river and the wheel scooping up that water. And then as it came around, it gave that water back down. It needed to carry that water for a bit, and then it dumped it back in. And I think we as women, we have this natural tendency to be doers and fixers and nurturers. And we can tend to be scooping, 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 scooping all that water up in the doing, but never allowing it to release so that we can receive
Mm.
back again. And it's that we define roles and expectations in our life. Part of my work is I call it becoming unsilenced, because it's looking at those roles and expectations, and where are we kind of unconsciously living out the expectation that someone else has placed upon us
Mm.
in a role. And I'm going to use the role of being a mother because it's one that is so alive in me right now, as my youngest is about to graduate from high school and get ready to go on to college, and our paths are going to part a little bit. And I think about my role as a mom, and society has a lot of expectations at this point in time about um, what you should do for your child as they're leaving home, how how you should support them in their next journey. And I've been working through that for me, because my heart is pulling me off in um, a path that probably is moving me away from the home that we live in right now. And there's part of that role of mom for me is like, well, do I need to keep that home for her to keep her stability?
Mm.
And then as I observe these things and look and like, okay, how can I strip away? What's the expectation that someone else has placed on me? And what is the true um, need for me to connect? Well, the true need for me is to find a way to maintain the beautiful relationship that we've developed.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it has to be attached to a physical space. So, stripping away all of those conditions and expectations moves us to a much deeper, more meaningful relationships of being able to give and to receive.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I can feel that if I take my role as a mother, and try to figure out what is expected, I step into my willpower. I don't step into my resilience. I don't allow. Oh, this word allowing is such a beautiful word, but I don't allow that my longing comes up, um, for what is needed, or for what is the next step, or for what. Yeah. And so then I just get, like, I get hard, you know
Yeah,
and when I get hard, I'm like, I just, when something happens, and I just go like this. But when I'm strong here and I'm soft here, I can move along. It's like the anchor again. I can.
exactly.
It's much more flowy in me then. Yeah, and then
Yeah,
I also enjoy it more, to be honest. you know
exactly.
yeah.
Because the with expectation, when we're trying to fulfill expectation, then it becomes obligation.
Mm,
And obligation doesn't come from that deep centered space inside of us. It comes from us doing something that someone else put on us
mm,
without realizing that's what we're doing.
yeah.
And I think the more aware we become, then the more we can see where we're choosing from our heart and where we're choosing out of obligation.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's also with the giving and receiving. If you feel obliged to give because it's your duty as whatever role, and you feel that if you receive, you have to give something back, because it kind of builds up this guilt in you. It's not free. It's all, keeping score. It's about, measuring, balancing. It's about, and then that actually stops completely the natural flow.
It does, yeah. As you were saying that, Marika, it brought up in me the word independence. Now, I don't know about women in Europe, but I know women in the United States have taken on this really interesting idea of independence. And
Mm,
independence means I have to do it all myself. And if I'm not doing it all myself, then there's some weakness and some flaw
mm,
in me. And I come from a circle of single moms. I've spent the last 10 years as raising my kids pretty much solo. And I've seen how there are the single moms around me have taken this idea of independence and doing on saying, well, I've got to do it all myself and I can't ask for help. And they they don't know how to receive. And actually receiving makes them feel like they're less than or unworthy. And that's so heartbreaking to me because independence is actually a trauma response. Some of the things I work with people on is the fight, flight, freeze, faint fawn syndromes of trauma responses. And independence is a building a wall around us and walling ourselves off. And instead, when we can soften and allow that giving and receiving, we find a space of intradependence where we are standing fully in our light, but we're also standing with other people, and we can acknowledge that we can't ever do anything alone. I'm
Mm,
never going to grow all of my food, have a somehow create all my own electricity. I'm never going to be able to do that. So if we can begin to build these intradependent communities, especially for women, where we allow ourselves to give and receive of our gifts,
yeah,
what a much more beautiful space that is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That for me, that's all. That's my work. To bring the circles. The circles where you meet from the heart. And I work with the lineages, so your female lineage behind you to experience, to the power of the women that have given life forth and forth and forth until it came to you. And so
Yeah,
you can accept that gift, and that is all about giving and receiving as well. If I don't really receive my life, then it's much harder to give from the heart. Yeah, yeah. So I love how, and I'm really happy to be living in a time and space where it's where we can get together again in circles, even if it's
yeah,
now it's not physically so much possible in the Netherlands, but we do feel the connection and the power of just being together and being witness to each other's journey, and to see it, and to when I sit here and I listen to you and I watch you and I think I can see the light shining through you, and I think that's so important, that we allow ourselves as well to say that, or to notice that and to share
yeah,
it, and then you build this, yeah, then you build your base stronger and stronger.
yeah,
Yeah. Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Isn't that nice?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. I was just reading this morning. I love Eckhart Tolle and the New Earth. I've just
Mhm.
finished that book by him. And one of the examples he used in there is a tree, when it grows, it doesn't sit there and say, I'm demanding to grow into a tree. It
Mm,
doesn't sit there and say, oh, I'm not going to be happy till I'm a great big oak tree. And I was thinking that too. You mentioned the receiving of life. And we don't have to do anything to grow and mature as human beings. Our body, when a baby comes into the world, that body is already knows how to grow, and we don't have to teach it that. And the baby doesn't have to say, okay, you know, grow some more hair, or grow my legs stronger so I can walk now. So I think this is part of this relaxing into the natural instinctual places that our soul is already has this beautiful map to follow and blueprint to follow of expansion. And if we can just relax into and receive that blueprint is unfolding for our lives in the way that it's supposed to, just
mm,
allows us this much more enjoyment of the journey. And we're able then to get together and meet and share these beautiful conversations, because we realize that bringing in the light of others helps us on our journey.
yeah. Yeah. I love it how in this conversation, we we I don't think I don't we didn't think them up, but they came to us, the 9 ways of well-being, the natural way, and the relationships, and the relaxation, the just your breath going,
Yeah.
and the looking after your body, and to start with, loving yourself, and all these elements, they are all interconnected. It's I feel so much that we're stepping out of a either or life, but to a and or both, a win-win,
That
whatever you
spiral you
call it.
talked about, not no longer the linear, but the spiral.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Mm, very nice.
Well, Marika, you asked me to share a practice
Yeah.
on how I've developed my own resilience.
Mm,
Um,
yeah,
and
take us
yeah,
with you.
yeah. So I'm going to do my practice is not necessarily just a practice of a like a meditative practice, but I'm going to start with an actual exercise for
Mhm.
someone to do. So,
Yeah, we can do it. I will.
well, this is going to be something they might have to spend a little bit of time to
Oh yeah, they
actually.
can pause. They can pause, but it's nice to
Yeah.
try it out. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So I want someone to just think about where is an area of life that they feel kind of hooked in, like triggered, hooked, like if I could just kind of figure this one area
Mhm.
out, life would be simpler and easier. So I'll tell you, for me, I have three areas in my life that I would kind of classify as that hook. One would be my relationship with money. One would be romantic relationships, and then one would be like my eating patterns. I'm a very emotional eater. So the one I'm kind of actively working on my life right now is this relationship with money.
Mhm.
So whatever that comes up for you, I want you to then make a timeline throughout your life. And this is just purely from an observation standpoint. And if if you get into a judgment mode, then you need to take a break and just stand back from it. But actually journal, draw a timeline out, mark the age you were, and maybe even write down the year, what was maybe happening at that point in time. And then make just this chart of how your relationship with this particular thing has unfolded. So for me, I went back with money. And as a child, my family was in some kind of difficult financial situations when I was a young person. Then I kind of got my own job. I was very self sufficient. Then I met a partner who was kind of irresponsible with money. Then down the road, I got another job that really was supportive of me financially. And so just make this graph with these peaks on it. You're not trying to do anything at this point in time, but other than get that information out. And then let the awarenesses come to you. Put that down there. And then just as it unfolds, notice. Notice if there's something that you see from that perspective that you didn't see before. And then take that timeline into your journaling. And I would make sure and notice that as you're doing that timeline, if there is something that you write down that in makes you feel like a tear wants to come to your eye, or makes you feel like a really huge release and of like, oh wow, that was a moment of true like freedom around that topic.
Mhm.
Notice those things, write those things down because they're important. keys in. And then bring that in to a time of silent meditation around that. Maybe even lay that timeline in front of you. And then sit in a silent, just meditative practice of observing what emotions came up from creating it, from doing it. And then invite in the awarenesses that want to come with
Mm.
it. And then go to the journal and ask the eyes of your soul, angels, guides, whatever it is that you want to invite in to show you the greater insight there. Now, my practice is a form of journaling where I actually journal a question
Mm-hmm.
and then I wait for that bubbling response that kind of flows up from inside of me. And I don't question, I just write whatever comes up, whatever comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that comes to a natural end, I ask another question, whatever question maybe has arisen from that response. And through this practice, you can begin to uncover insights, awarenesses, curiosities, hooks that you didn't see before. Maybe a hook where instead of allowing things to flow through you, they're all getting bottled up in this one particular point. And now, from this new perspective, you can see that,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can allow it to release and heal at a deep, deep level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that's kind of the practice that I would encourage people to go through. And it takes time, physical time. And it's one of the things I didn't understand in my earlier years, my non resilient years, is the fact that I really had to carve out time, the being time, not
Mm.
the doing time, but the actually being with these things without trying to force an answer or an insight. And then in that surrendered space of being, many more answers and insights flow than you could even imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's these layers because I journaled along a little bit, and you started with a romantic relationship, or that's the one that I thought, oh, I'll look into that. And I kind of got like this, the first time I was so in love, so in love. And it was not, he was not in love with me, you know. and and suddenly I felt, oh, I've been through that, I've looked at that moment quite a few times already. But suddenly I realized, oh, and somehow I kind of locked a little bit of myself away.
Yeah.
I want, if I want a new relationship now, yeah, I want it all of me, but then I have to also like not lock this part of way anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So now you can strip that away. Now you can reclaim that part of you.
Mm.
You can unsilence that part of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that I agree with the time, because it's not like, you'd go there once and then it's done. It's one and done. I picked that
It
up
it
somewhere.
yeah.
It is. It's like, okay, yeah. So
It
I'm
is
back there
layered.
again. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And when I did this, because I've looked at money, my money history many times, but when I did this just a couple weekends ago with this money timeline, I saw how my ability to earn my own income, that money rescued me from a bad situation that felt
Mm.
trapped in. And I'd never seen that before. But as we grow, we naturally look at things through different lenses and filters. And now I can see that through this new lens and filter, that I was seeing money as a rescuer and
Mm.
reshape
Yeah,
relationships.
yeah.
So,
Beautiful. Mm.
yeah.
Well, thank you ever so much for having this beautiful conversation and just to feel the connection, even though we're in different parts of the world, that we, yeah, that we get to
Yeah.
spend time like this. So thank you very much.
It's
And
beautiful, Marika. I've really enjoyed being here and the conversation and the ebb and the flow of our conversation as it wove around in so many different directions to just kind of weave this beautiful tapestry of conversation.
yeah, yeah. Mm. Yeah, and for everyone who's listening, thank you very much for taking the time. And yeah, if you want to know more about Vicky, and she has a beautiful gift for you, just check it out on the page. And yeah, we hope to see you again at some of the other conversations of the circle. And yeah, have
Yeah.
a good day.
Thank you, Marika. Everyone take care. Be resilient, not resistant.
Yeah, I'm keeping that in mind. Resilience, not resistance. Okay.